What is going on, guys? Crimson here, and welcome to the second, episode of this little series here, where we're going over the top 5 strongest damage champions today. Yeah. In the last one of these that we went over the top 5 front lines, or top 5 flanks that are the strongest. This time it is the damages. So, yeah, these are, some of them, in my opinion, I tried to really kind of work around them. I used to play a lot of damages. In fact, Mr. Dancer over here is the one that I got gold first, so, yeah. But I did do some research. I did look into the actual champions themselves again, and I pulled a lot of information from that. So this is the first video that I'm doing a voiceover, so bear with me. This might be a little bit of a struggle. I'm working on a Talus video where I'm going to be talking about Talus, and I'm doing a voiceover for that, so keep an eye out for that one. But without further ado, let's go into the video. So, to begin with Cassie, in our number 5 spot, she has a crossbow as her primary fire that does 680 damage every 0.75 seconds. That can dish out a good bit of damage if you're hitting those shots. Then she has, as her second ability, her disengage, which is a blast back, which does about 300 damage. That's pretty good. It causes obviously a great deal of knockback, but it does have that 300 damage on top of it. Her third ability is called Blast Shot, which she fires on an explosive bolt that does 450 AoE damage. Now, AoE is area of effect damage. I think I might have gone over this in the frontline video, but if not, area effect is AoE. And then her last and final ability is called Dodge Roll. Now, obviously, that is just a simple dodge roll. There's nothing really too crazy about it. There are cards that you can modify each and every one of these. Well, excluding her crossbow, you can modify each and every one to either cause greater knockback from disengage, or cooldown reduction, or greater distance with your dodge roll, and stuff like that. So, and you can also apply self-sustain or self-heal based on those cards as well. So there's some pretty valuable stuff that you can do there. Then you have, for her ultimate, it is called Scout. Now, Scout is a all reveal to the enemies. Basically, you apply Scout and you can see every enemy. It's pretty straightforward. And that lasts for 8 seconds. On top of that, it increases Cassie's movement. It didn't specify or not whether it increases everybody's movement, but it just said that it increases movement speed. And increases the movement speed by 30% and increases your fire rate by 20%. So you can deal a lot. You can do a lot with her ultimate. Then with her talents, you have her first talent, which is called Exaction. Now, Exaction increases the next shot after dodge roll by 30% for 8 seconds. So basically what that means is, after you do a dodge roll for the next 8 seconds, for the next 8 seconds until you fire your first shot. If that first shot connects after your dodge roll during that 8 seconds, that shot will deal 30% more damage. So, basically, to sum that up, her next talent is called Impulse. Now, Impulse increases the damage of Blast Shot because it goes from 450 damage to 600 damage, and its cooldown is reduced from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. And so basically it just makes your blast shot a lot stronger. That's just about it. And with certain cards and a certain loadout, you can have a pretty strong impulse Cassie right there for you. And then with her last talent, it is called Big Game. And so Big Game is 4 seconds after using Disengage. The weapon shots deal 8% more, 8% of the damage, 8% of the enemy's max health. That phrase right there is used a lot in some of the descriptions. But basically what that means, to summarize that, is after you use Disengage, which is the blast to make them get the knockback, for 4 seconds after you use Disengage, your weapon shots will deal 8% of their max health. Like those, say that the enemy has a max health of 2100, okay? You hit that enemy with Disengage, and then for the next 4 seconds, you're dealing 8% of 2100. I don't know how to do that kind of math in my head, but it could possibly be a lot. I'm pretty sure that's a lot. Anyways, moving on to our number 4 spot, we've got Dracos. Now, Dracos is an interesting one. Very interesting. He's quite strong, but not the strongest, as he's in 4. Anyways, so he's got his primary fire as rockets that deal 850 AoE damage every 0.85 seconds. So they're almost a full second in like slowness or whatever, but it's not bad. The AoE is still there, so like if you miss the shot even a little bit, it's okay. Then you got his second ability, which is called Fire Spit, which this is a blob. It's a big blob thing that you shoot with your rocket. If you shoot the blob with your rocket, it deals 900 AoE damage. And then if you get a direct hit with the blob, then you deal 150 damage, and it weakens the enemy for a short period of time. Weakening the enemy implies that for the remaining however much time it takes, the rest of your rocket shots will actually deal more damage. And it kind of makes sense, because it's almost like a coating effect. It's like, hey, now you're coated with my flammable spit, so yeah. But then he got his third ability, which is called Salvo. Now this, short and simple, it's a rapid fire of all 6 of your rockets. You load like them in a compact thing, and then you shoot them. Now each rocket does 250 damage, and if you use Salvo while you're in the air using your little jets thing or whatever, it will actually propel you a little bit. Now there's, I think, cards that you can use to increase the strength of the propulsion. There's also cards to increase the size and I think the speed of your fire spit, or maybe not speed, but I know there's one for size. And then you got his last ability, which is called Thrust, which that simply just is a jet that shoots you upward, and then you hold your jump button, and you can kind of just float around or hover or whatever as a booster. And there's also cards to upgrade that. Then you have his ultimate, which his ultimate is the first, I think it's the first execution ultimate we're going to be going over. But this ultimate is called Dragon Punch, and basically, as I said, it's a execution. You jet through the air, and when you land on it, I think it deals the maximum damage that they have, or the max health that they have. But I think I looked into it and it said that it dealt well over 2,000 some damage. It was pretty good. Or it could deal from 2,000 to I think 5,000 to 8,000, somewhere around there. I don't know. It's an execution. Is the best I can say. Moving on to his talents, which are pretty interesting. You've got Fire Spit. No. You've got Combustible is what I meant to say. Combustible, which that makes your Fire Spit apply a knockback effect and adds 300 damage over 2 seconds. So it's a damage effect on the enemy, on the target that you hit with it. And that damage spans for over 2 seconds to deal 300 damage. That was not short and sweet. You got his second talent, which is called, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Fusillade or Fusillade, something. But basically, any direct hit that you get with your rockets on an enemy, or whether it's your rockets or the salvo rockets, it increases the damage that they inflict by 25%. So, if you're going to be running this talent, then you gotta hopefully guarantee that you're going to be getting some direct hits, which I personally don't really see it as too difficult as a feat to do, but some may. And moving on, the last talent is called Worm Jets, and this just increases your movement speed while you're in your jet form. So while you're flying around using your jets, you can be more mobile. And I'm pretty sure it originally also said that you have like more air control, but with the recent patches and whatnot with this season, they apparently made it that everybody has, whether it's 100% or close to 100% air control, which that just means that you can do better maneuvers while you're in the air. And so that's Dracos for you. Coming in our number 3 spot, we've got Betty or Betty La Bamba. Now, Betty La Bamba is a spam damage, to put it and just leave it there. She does a lot of damage throughout the match constantly. That's it. Her primary fire is a nade launcher. Now, a direct hit with this nade will deal 700 damage, and it has a fire rate of 0.6 seconds. But if you don't get a direct hit, there's a timer for 2 seconds, and the damage will do a 560 damage area of effect. So it can still do a good bit. Her second ability is a cluster nade that has 2 separate explosions. The first explosion does 250 damage off the bat, and then the second one is, because it spawns, the first one, the initial one, spawns up to 6 more, up to 6 more bombs, and then each of them deal 500 damage each. 2 eaches. Her third ability is a hail of bombs, or as I like to call it, the fountain bomb, because it is a fountain of explosives that each of them deal 370 damage. Now, this could be good for, getting enemies off a point or closing off an area, because they can be a menace to try and go against. And then her last ability is called Explosive Personality. Now, this one is a jump ability that has 3 separate charges. You jump upwards, and you can deal 235 damage, plus a knockback effect to enemies that are behind you when you jump or below you when you jump. So it can be used as a technical weapon, but it's mainly used as a mobility ability. Then you have her ultimate. Now her ultimate is called Long Live the Queen. You simply ride a large bomb to an enemy, and it will deal 1900 damage on the spot. Or you can reactivate it while you're riding it. You can reactivate the ultimate to just send the bomb or the rocket flying straight forward, and it will have the same exact effect. For her talents, you have Fiery Disposition, which Fiery Disposition, this one's a complicated one, because this one adds a fire effect, or a flame effect, to your explosives. Any explosive damage that you deal as Betty with this talent will have a fire effect that has a damage tick for 0.3% of the enemy's max health. The ticks are every 0.1 second, and they last for 1.5 seconds. Any additional hits with your bombs will refresh this duration, so 1.5 can go up to 3 seconds, and so forth. Her second talent is called Controlled Fury. Now, this one is, it reduces the radius of the hail of bombs to a much smaller diameter, and because it reduces it by 50%, and then the cooldown is reduced from 14 seconds to 12 seconds. So it's not too big of a cooldown reduction, but it can be, I guess. And then her last talent is, in my opinion, complete garbage, because it's called Gotta Bounce. The cooldown of your jump, of your little explosive personality, from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. So that sounds amazing. However, your movement speed overall is reduced by 15%. That's at least from what I've read. I don't know if it's actually overall or if it's just the movement speed of your jump is reduced by 15%. Either way, I think it's not the greatest. But who am I to talk? Because I don't really play her that much. Yeah, so that's Betty for you. Coming in at our number 2 spot, we've got Tyra. Now, Tyra is pretty straightforward as a strong damage. She's got an automatic rifle that deals 115 damage every 0.09 seconds, so that's pretty fast. She's got a nade launcher as her second ability. That is an impact nade, and it does 700 damage. She has a, I think it's technically called Firebomb, but I call it the Molotov because that's basically what it is. And it just throws down a pool of fire, and that does 9% of the enemy's max health for over 0.6 seconds. So that can be a lot of damage there too. And her last ability is called Hunter's Mark. Now, Hunter's Mark, this one, it increases your damage by 15% dealt to the enemy that you choose to mark, and that can be pretty good. Mainly use that on tanks, and you're solid for the match, really. Her ultimate, if you thought that her automatic rifle shot fast, it gets faster, because her ult is called Crossfire, and it increases the fire rate and your movement speed both by 40%. And during this entire ultimate, you don't consume ammo at all, so you continuously fire for the full, I believe it was 8 or 9 seconds that it goes on for. So that's pretty wild. Going straight into her talents, We've got Mercy Kill as her first talent, and her nade launcher has now 3 charges, and so yeah, three charges or 3 shots. However, the damage is reduced to 650 damage. So it's just a 50 damage decrease. However, you get 3 shots. So you could look at that as a good thing or as a bad thing. I personally don't care. Her second talent is called Hunter's Party. Now, Hunter's Party gives you 2 charges for your Hunter's Mark. And the benefits of the Hunter's Mark, so the benefits are like the 15% damage increase. The benefit is granted to your teammates. So your whole team now can deal 15% more damage to that chosen target, which makes Hunting Party probably her best talent right now. And you've got Burn Monster as her last talent. This basically just makes it so your Molotov deals a 30% increase in damage, and it applies a 60% cauterize effect. Now, if you don't know what cauterize is, I still have time so I can explain it. Cauterize is basically, it used to be an item that you could purchase, and cauterize would make it so that way any enemy that you deal damage to has a healing reduction. They can't actually get healed for as much as they would have in the beginning. Now they just kind of gave it to everybody, and the effect of the cauterize progresses throughout as the match progresses. So I think at first it starts off at like 15%, and by the end of like the second or third round in Siege, it's up to 40%. No, excuse me, 40%. So 60% cauterize effect. That's a big boy. But that's Tyra. So yeah. Now she's strong, but if this was completely opinionated, I'd have her in first. But this isn't opinionated, so I gotta follow suit with what everyone else thinks. And that will be our number 1. But we gotta get into the honorable mentions here. For our first honorable mention, we've got Dredge. Now, Dredge is like Betty with being a spam damage, but I don't have time to get into that, so let's go through it. His main primary damage is his little howitzer. Now, the shots that he fires, they bounce and explode, dealing 850 damage every 0.7 seconds. He then has broadside, which is 3 shots, and they hover and arm after contact with the ground, and they each deal 950 damage when they explode. His third ability is a harpoon, which pierces enemies deals 800 damage and slows enemies. And you have his shortcut. Now, I think I have time to explain all this, but his shortcut is okay. You place a portal down, and then you go to a different area and you place a second portal. You walk through this second portal, and it teleports you back to the first portal. And this whole cycle will repeat. So what was the first portal is now the second portal. And so whatever third portal you place, you go back to your second portal? No. Yeah. Whatever third you place, you go to the second. And you can basically go back and forth. It's very difficult to explain, but it's very simple to understand. If you can sit there, and I believe I'm showing it here on the clip footage here, where I'm just going back and forth, back and forth. If you're watching that and you're understanding what I'm saying to some degree, phone, thank you, and you're understanding at least a little bit of what I'm saying, then it should be pretty fairly simple to gather. Anyways, so that is that. His ultimate is a Kraken, and it's a large area, does 2,500 damage, and applies knockback to enemies in the area if they don't get killed by the Kraken. So, you might be thinking, why didn't he make it? And the reason is, though he is similar to Betty in being spammable damage champ, that's all he is. Betty has all of her different quirks that make her better, plus Betty's movement ability is better than his teleport. Because all you gotta do is just jump, whereas with Dredge, you gotta physically place down a portal, walk through the portal, and then there's a lot of, for me, I think there's a lot of thinking involved with it. I mean, there's a lot of, you could try to figure out the best way to go through the portals and constantly do that kind of stuff, so you're in a safer kind of position, whereas with Betty, you just gotta jump. So, that's why I put Dredge in an honorable mention, and this is an opinionated one. So, you got that. And I'm sorry for my phone going on. With our second honorable mention, we've got Willow. Now, Willow has a wand that shoots a small area effect damage for 500 damage every 0.75 seconds. She's got a dead zone that deals 100 damage if you hit an enemy with it, and it applies a very strong cauterize effect, which, as previously explained, the cauterize effect just means that they can't get healed very well. Her seedlings are her third ability, and they are very similar to Betty's little cluster bomb, in which you throw out one main seedling and it explodes, dealing an initial 400 damage, but then it also sprouts 4 extra seeds that each deal also another 400 damage. So getting caught in one of those is not going to be very fun. Her last talent, or last ability I mean, is called Fluttered. Now, basically you just fly forward, and you get a small speed boost afterwards, depending on which direction you fly. Because I think you can fly, I think you can use Flutter and go backwards, I believe. And so, if you're going backwards, there's not going to be a speed boost. But if you're going forwards, then there will be. So that's basically it. And then you have our ultimate, which is called Fey Flight, which, with Fey Flight, you gain full air control, and you have crowd control immunity. And I think the best combo to do for her ultimate is you simply use Flutter to fly up to the sky, or as high as you can be, and then the moment when Flutter ends, you use Fey Flight, and now you're permanently in the air until the ultimate ends, and then that's it. But why didn't Willow make it? If she has a good cauterize effect, and she can deal pretty good damage and whatnot, and spends a lot of time flying around, why didn't she make it? Well, yeah, she's unique and definitely strong, but the whole reason is because she's highly situational, I think. Like, if you're dealing with a strong healer, like right now how there's Genos and Grover, if you're dealing with that, then the best thing to do is to run Willow. But other than if that's the case, then you're not really going to be having that. You can make a pretty good loadout build to have, well, solid self-sustain, and but that isn't enough to apply her to the rest of the 5. So, but yeah, that is Willow. And for our number 1 spot, we've got Bomb King. Now, I've already stated that I personally don't think Bomb King is the strongest damage champ. I don't. I personally think that Tyra is, but I'm going off of the information I've gathered and collected, and this is what I've got. So, to get into it, you've got his primary, which is Sticky Bomb. Now, he throws the sticky bombs at a rate of 0.7 seconds, and they can stick to enemies or walls or whatever. You then detonate with his second ability to blow up the stickies and deal a total of 850 damage per sticky that you explode. So, I mean, right there, if you stack the stickies, you can deal a lot of damage, but otherwise, I think it's the more valid use for them is to throw them one at a time and do as much as you can with that. You've got his third ability, which is a Grumpy Bomb. It's a big bomb that has a timer, and this, when it explodes, it deals 800 damage. Plus, it has a massive stun. I personally think that might be like what makes the Grumpy Bomb the most, like, I guess, loved. But I mean, because you can use it in the same way as Hail of Bombs for Betty, because you can use it to cut off an area for the enemies to combat you, and you can use it as a massive crowd control stun. I mean, there are some valid things I can see in it, but other than those, I don't see anything. And you have his last ability, which is a Poppy Bomb, which they've recently changed it, and I was confused about this, but they recently changed it, where it's now a Sticky Bomb that you have to detonate by reactivating the ability, that can deal 150 damage to enemies if it hits them, and it allows for a hefty knockback. It's a big knockback. You mainly use it to blast yourself forward. You have his ultimate, which is called King Bomb. Basically, you just roll around, and then on impact with an enemy, or you can self-detonate, you deal 2,500 damage, a 2-second stun, and self knockback to yourself. So, like, this knockback, like, pushes you back so you can be in better control of line of sight, I guess. And while you're rolling in the rolling state, you have immunity to all crowd control. So that includes, like, stuns and silencing and stuff like that. So that's pretty good. For his talents, you've got his first talent, which is Chain Reaction. Which this one, as stated earlier with stacking the stickies. When stacking the stickies, the explosives actually increase the damage with each sticky. So it can go from 30% to 150% depending on how many you stack. So I think if you just throw on 2, it's only 30%, but if you have all, I think, 6, it's 150. And with cards, that can go up even more, because there's a card that you can increase the amount of stickies that you actually have. So there's that. You have his second talent, which I think is the most used, is called Royal Subjects. And this one just increases the blast radius of your stickies by 20%. However, your ammo count of the amount of stickies that you actually have is reduced by 2. So you go from 6 to 4. And then his last talent is called Accelerant. And this, short and simple, just reduces the time it takes for a Grumpy Bomb to blow up by 40%. that is all for the video. So if you liked it, then please like and subscribe. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.